My name's Devin Clark. And before everything fell apart, before the betrayal, the lies, and the theft, there was just me and my little brother, Elliot. We grew up in Nottingham, in a modest semi-detached house on a quiet cul-de-sac. Mum worked in admin at the local council, Dad was a mechanic with oil always under his fingernails, but hands that could fix anything, except maybe what was coming for us. We weren't poor, but we weren't flush either. One family holiday a year, usually Devon or Cornwall if we could swing it. School uniforms were always second-hand, and birthdays meant cake from Asda and a takeaway if Dad had a good week. Still, we had a good childhood. Simple. Happy. Real. Elliot and I were like most brothers, I suppose. Best mates 1 minute, knocking lumps out of each other the next. But we always had each other's backs. We shared everything. Room. Toys. Secrets. I remember once, must have been about 10 years old. I broke Dad's prized model car trying to see how fast it could roll down the stairs. I was bricking it. Elliot saw the panic on my face and without blinking, he said, "Tell Dad I did it." And I did. That was just the sort of brother he was back then. Loyal. Fierce. A bit wild, but always there. I was the older one, the more sensible one. Always with my head in a book, revising for SATs or planning my GCSE timetable like it was life or death. I got straight A's, played for the school football team, kept my nose clean. Elliot? He was clever, smarter than me, if I'm honest, but he didn't care for rules. Hated school, talked back to teachers, and always had some half-scheme going on, selling energy drinks out of his backpack, downloading dodgy films for pocket money, that kind of thing. But he was funny. Proper funny. And people loved him for it. As we got older, our paths started to split. I got into the University of Leeds, studied business, worked part-time at a call center to pay my way. I graduated, got a job in property management back in Nottingham. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Respectable. Elliot, on the other hand, flitted from one thing to another, bartending, car sales, crypto for a bit, even tried to be a DJ. He never stuck with anything longer than 6 months. Mum always said, he just needs time to find himself. But even then, I could see it. He was bitter. About me. About how things turned out. He started cracking jokes like, "Look at Mr. Suit and Tie." Or, "Must be nice, having your life all mapped out for you." He'd say it with a smile, but the tone, it stung. Still, when he needed help, I gave it. He asked to stay at mine for a bit after he split up with his girlfriend. Said it was, just until he found a new place. That bit turned into 3 months. Then 6. He'd sleep in, leave dishes in the sink, borrow my clothes without asking. Took my PlayStation once to lend to a mate and I didn't see it again for 2 months. But I made excuses. He's my brother, I told myself. He's just going through a rough patch. I never imagined he was watching me with resentment. That the person I trusted most would soon take everything I had. We were raised together. We shared everything. But I didn't see it coming. Not from him. It started subtly, like a slow leak in a pipe you don't notice until the ceiling caves in. Elliot had been living with me for over 6 months by that point. What began as a few weeks, tops, turned into him half moving in, no rent, no job, no effort. He'd sleep until noon, vanish in the evenings, and come back smelling like weed and cheap lager. I tried to stay patient. I'd leave job ads pinned to the fridge, nudge him to apply, even offered to help rewrite his CV. He'd always say, yeah, I'll get to it. But he never did. Still, he was my brother. And I didn't want to be the reason he ended up on the streets. But the real shift, the one I didn't see coming, started when I got promoted. I'd been with Brightpoint Property Management for 3 years by then. Worked my way up from assistant coordinator to regional accounts lead. It wasn't flashy, but I was proud of it. I'd finally been given the keys to my own company car, a raise, and the chance to manage high-value contracts. I came home the day it happened, buzzing. I bought a bottle of Prosecco from Tesco Express on the way in, ready to celebrate, even saved Elliot a glass. But when I told him, he barely looked up from his phone. He just said, "Mad guess kissing arse really does pay off." I laughed at first, thought it was banter. That's how we were. But then he followed it with, "Bet I could do your job in my sleep, if I wanted. It's all numbers and bullsh asterisk T anyway." That stung. I tried to brush it off. But the atmosphere changed that night. And the next day, I noticed he'd started asking odd questions, like, "How much do you reckon your company would pay out if someone sued them?" Or, "Where do they store client contracts, on your laptop or the cloud?" I joked, "What, you planning a heist?" He smiled, but he didn't answer. A week later, I came back late from a site meeting in Derby and found him sitting at the kitchen table, on my work laptop. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Oh chill, mate. Just checking football scores." You left it open. But the tabs weren't football. They were spreadsheets. Client names. Contract files. I felt sick. I didn't say anything right then, I didn't want to believe what I was thinking. I told myself maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe he just clicked the wrong thing. But deep down, I knew. I met up with my mate Callum from university that weekend. Told him what happened, just to get it off my chest. He didn't even hesitate. "Dev, that's dodgy. Password protect your stuff. Lock your room. Something's not right." I nodded. I even laughed it off. But when I got home that night, I did exactly what he said. I changed every password. Put a lock on my bedroom door. Hid my work files on an encrypted USB stick. And that was the night I realized I couldn't trust my own brother anymore. In the weeks that followed, he got more secretive. More intense. He'd leave the house dressed sharp, like he had somewhere important to be, but always came back with nothing to show for it. And then I overheard him on the phone one night. He was pacing the living room, whispering, "Yeah, he works with client accounts. Got access to all of it, just need to find the right angle." My blood ran cold. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't know what to say. But the doubt was gone. This wasn't laziness. This wasn't jealousy. This was something worse. He wasn't just angry at me for getting ahead. He wanted to take everything I'd built. You can ignore warning signs for only so long. But when someone's drowning in envy, they'll pull you under with them just to feel taller. And I was about to find out just how far my own brother was willing to go. I didn't know it at the time. But the countdown had already begun. It was a Monday, standard stuff. I came into the office, booted up my system, checked emails. Everything seemed normal, until I got called into a meeting with my manager, Sophie Grant. She wasn't smiling. That was the first red flag. She shut the glass door behind me, folded her arms, and asked straight out, "Devon, do you know anything about this?" She slid a printout across the table. It was a client invoice, one of mine. But the figures were completely wrong. Triple what they should have been. And the bank details? Completely different. A chill went through me. I scanned the numbers again and again. It had my name on it. My digital signature. But I hadn't touched that file since last quarter. I said, "Sophie, I didn't send this. I swear." She didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just looked at me. Then she said, Well, I hope for your sake there's an explanation, because legal's involved. The moment I stepped out of that meeting, I rang Callum. Mate, I said, someone's messing with my work. Seriously. This isn't a mistake, it's been altered. He didn't even hesitate. Elliot, he said. I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe it wasn't him. But there was no one else who had access to my laptop, to my files, to my password, before I changed them. And suddenly, all those little moments made sense. The times he asked weird questions. The night I caught him on my laptop. The phone call I overheard, the secrecy, the way he kept asking how secure my job was. It wasn't random. He'd been planning something. That night, I checked my USB backup of the invoice, the original file. Clean. Accurate. Proof. But the modified version? It had been uploaded under my login to our company's secure server. From my IP address. On a date I wasn't even in town, I was at a conference in Birmingham. Which meant someone had done it, while I was away. Someone in my house. There was only one person that could have been. I waited until he got home that evening. He was all cheerful, wearing my jumper again, takeaway in hand. I didn't even bother easing into it. Did you use my laptop to mess with one of my work files? I asked. He blinked, gave me this fake laugh. What are you on about? You logged into my company server. Someone uploaded a fake invoice using my credentials. From our IP. While I was away. He dropped the act instantly. His voice went cold. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. And even if I did, what's the worst that'll happen? You lose your fancy job. I couldn't believe it. I stared at him, my own brother, and all I saw was smugness. No guilt. No fear. Just resentment. Like I was the villain for having what he didn't. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just sabotage. It was a setup. He was trying to destroy my career. 2 days later, HR asked me to take a leave of absence while they investigated the incident. That's code for. We think you did it but can't prove it yet. I tried explaining. I showed them my original file, the travel records, even told them about Elliot. But it didn't matter. My reputation was already under fire. Colleagues stopped saying hello. Clients asked to speak to someone else. I wasn't suspended, but I might as well have been. Everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd built. Was hanging by a thread. I never imagined I'd be here, fighting for my name, for my job, for my future. And the person who lit the match was the one who once stood by me on the football pitch, knees scraped and smiling. But brothers don't always stay brothers. Sometimes, they turn into strangers. Narration, first person. They say the truth always comes out. But the truth means nothing when no one's willing to hear it. After HR put me on leave, things spiraled fast. I was told to stay off the company system, no emails, no calls, no access. They said it was procedure. It felt like exile. A week later, Sophie called me in for a final meeting. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. She sighed and said, "Devon, we can't ignore the paper trail. The evidence just doesn't work in your favor." I tried to protest. Showed her my USB backup, my calendar log from Birmingham, my hotel receipts. She didn't look me in the eye. The board had already made a decision. I was out. I cleared my desk that afternoon. No warning. No goodbye party. Just a box full of my things and a sick feeling in my stomach. It wasn't just losing a job. It was losing my place. My identity. And what hurt more than anything was knowing Elliot had done this to me. I didn't hold back this time. "You've destroyed my life," I said. "For what?" "Because I got ahead of you. Because I worked my arse off while you did nothing." Elliot didn't blink. He just shrugged and said, "Maybe if you weren't so smug about it, I wouldn't have had to put you in your place." That's when it clicked. This wasn't about needing help. This was about power. About punishment. He didn't want my job. He wanted to erase me, to wear my success like a mask and pretend it was his. Days turned into weeks. I applied everywhere, dozens of CVs, cover letters, follow-ups. But every time someone Googled my name, the same result came up. Former accounts manager at Brightpoint. Let go after internal audit. No explanation. No context. Just a black mark. I had savings, but they began to dwindle. Rent. Utilities. Groceries. Even my car, the one I'd been so proud of, had to go. I sold it for half its value just to cover a month's rent. Callum came by one night, takeout in hand. He took one look at me and said, "Mate, you can't keep living with him. He wants you broken." I nodded, but I didn't answer. Truth was, I had nowhere else to go. I couldn't ask my parents, they were retired and barely making ends meet in Sheffield. I didn't have family in London. And I sure as hell wasn't going to move back in with them at 29 like some beaten loser. I was stuck. Jobless. Reputation shredded. Living under the same roof as the person who did it to me. I'll never forget the day I checked my account and saw just over £100 left. £136. That was all that stood between me and absolute zero. I stared at that number for what felt like an hour. Not because of what it meant. But because I realized. Elliot had won. He'd taken my home, my stability, my dignity. And all I'd done was let him. I don't know when exactly it happened. But I stopped feeling angry. Not because I forgave him. But because I didn't have the energy left to be angry. That's what betrayal does, it doesn't hit you like a punch. It eats away at you, bit by bit, until there's nothing left but a shell. But here's the thing. When someone pushes you to rock bottom, there's only one direction left to go. And I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I woke up one morning to the sound of bin lorries outside. It was 5:47 a.m. Elliot was still asleep on the couch, sprawled across it like a king in a stolen palace. Something about it, his comfort, his ease, flipped a switch in me. No more pity. No more waiting. I'd spent months trapped in that flat, suffocating in silence. But now, I was done watching. I was going to rebuild what he tore down. And I wasn't going to do it loud. I was going to do it smart. The first step was simple, knowledge. I spent hours in the local library. Internet cafe. Even borrowed Callum's laptop when I had to. I looked into whistleblower protections, employment tribunals, cyberforensics. Anything that could help me prove what Elliot had done. I wasn't a tech wizard, but I knew how to dig. That invoice he tampered with. It left metadata. Timestamps. IP logs. Server activity. The digital equivalent of fingerprints. I just needed the right tool, and the right witness. Callum came through again. He introduced me to his mate Leah, works in cybersecurity. Smart, sharp, straight-talking. I showed her everything I had. The files. The emails. The hotel dates. The login logs. She frowned and said, "This is shady as hell. But it's not impossible to prove." Over the next 3 weeks, Leah helped me pull every digital thread. And what we found was damning. Multiple logins to my company account, from our flat's IP, while I was 120 miles away. The modified invoice metadata. And a hidden copy of the doctored file still sitting in my Google Drive trash, automatically synced when Elliot used my browser. He hadn't just forged the file. He left a trail. I compiled everything, neatly. Professionally. No accusations. Just facts. I sent it straight to Sophie at Brightpoint, along with a formal letter. I respectfully request this evidence be reviewed as part of an appeal to reinstate my employment or, at the very least, clear my professional record. I didn't expect an answer. But a week later, I got a call. I was in Tesco buying instant noodles when my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. Her voice was different this time, serious, but careful. "Devon, we've reviewed your documentation. We also had our IT team audit the company server. You were right." There was a pause, like she hated admitting it. "We owe you an apology." I didn't know what to say. I just remember standing in the frozen aisle, holding a pack of chicken ramen, and feeling everything come flooding back at once. Relief. Rage. Sadness. Vindication. But I wasn't done yet. Clearing my name was one thing. Letting Elliot get away with it. That was another. So I took it further. Leah helped me draft a report to the police. Identity theft, professional sabotage, potential financial fraud. I filed a formal complaint. I also contacted a solicitor about defamation and loss of income. I didn't have the money for a full trial, but I didn't need to. I just needed to rattle him. And that's exactly what I did. The last thing I did. I packed my things. Quietly. No drama. Just walked out. I didn't owe him a speech. Or a confrontation. He knew what he'd done. And now. He knew I was coming for him. Starting again doesn't always look like fireworks and celebrations. Sometimes, it's just a small room. A second-hand desk. And a quiet fire inside you that says. He took his shot. Now it's my turn. I didn't go back to the flat out of sentiment. I went because I had something to return. And I wanted him to look me in the eye when I did it. Elliot looked up when I walked in, controller in hand. His smirk came back like muscle memory. "Well, well," he said, "look who finally crawled back." I didn't respond. I walked past him and placed an envelope on the coffee table. Inside was a copy of the police complaint. The digital audit. The HR letter acknowledging their mistake. And a legal notice from the solicitor I'd spoken with. He flipped through it, eyes narrowing. "What is this?" he asked. I said nothing. I just sat across from him and watched. He looked up at me, then gave a little laugh, nervous, dry. "You think this is gonna scare me?" I smiled. "No," I said. "I know it's going to bury you." You could see it hitting him. The login history from our IP. The metadata on the files. The police report, signed and stamped. He stood up suddenly, defensive. "You can't prove I did anything," he said. "None of this says it was me." I leaned forward and said. "Mate, the account was accessed from your laptop. While I was in Birmingham. You used my browser, synced to my Google Drive. And you weren't even smart enough to use incognito mode." He went quiet. He started shouting, nonsense about how I always thought I was better, that I never gave him a chance, that Mom always liked me more. I didn't rise to it. I just said. "You didn't want a chance, Elliot. You wanted to skip the work and wear my skin like a costume." He stopped pacing. And for a moment, he looked scared. Truly scared. I stood up and said. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Brightpoint everything, admit what you did, in writing. Or I'll let this complaint go public. And when it does, no firm in this city will hire you to count their paperclips, let alone touch their books. He started to say something, but I cut him off. I gave you years of trust. Years. And you torched it like it meant nothing. I don't hate you, I said, walking to the door. But I won't let you take another thing from me. I left him standing there, mouth slightly open, hand still on the edge of the coffee table like he might fall over. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. Or broken. Or lost. I felt done. I had faced him. I had taken back control. And whether or not he confessed, the truth was out. The lies couldn't hold anymore. Some people think justice means revenge. But for me, it meant facing the person who tried to destroy me. And showing him, I survived. Better. Smarter. Stronger. You don't rebuild your life in a montage. It's not just gym sessions and inspirational quotes on Instagram. It's slow. Messy. And sometimes lonely. But every morning I wake up and know who I am now. And that's something Elliot can't steal. I started small, freelance gigs, virtual finance consults. Anything to get momentum going again. A startup called Clover Ledger finally gave me a shot. Nothing flashy, just a junior consultant role. But they'd heard about my Brightpoint situation and respected how I handled it. I didn't hide it in interviews anymore. I owned it. Because what happened to me wasn't shameful. It was a story of survival. And not just surviving someone else's betrayal. Surviving my own self-doubt. My mum finally knew everything. I'd kept her in the dark for months, told her I'd just had a rough patch. When I told her the truth, she cried. Not out of pity, out of anger. Your brother always wanted the easy way, she said, pouring tea like it was her weapon of choice. But you were built for storms. That moment meant more than any apology Elliot could ever give me. It reminded me who raised me. And who I really was. I joined a small community online, people who'd been betrayed by coworkers, even family. At first, I just read. Watched. Listened. But eventually, I started posting my story. Sharing resources. Helping others spot red flags before it was too late. People reached out. Thanked me. One woman even said, reading your story gave me the courage to confront my own brother. It was strange, finding purpose in pain. But that's how healing works, isn't it? It creeps in through the cracks. I don't know if Elliot ever sent that letter to Brightpoint. I don't know if the police ever fully pursued the case. And honestly, I stopped checking. Because at some point, you realize. Getting your life back isn't about making someone else lose theirs. It's about choosing yourself. Every single day. A few months later, I started teaching finance basics at a youth center in Brixton. Just once a week. But it lit me up. I realized, all that knowledge I'd spent years hoarding in spreadsheets and invoices. It could actually help someone. And that felt like redemption in its purest form. This wasn't the life I planned. But it's the life I earned. And if I've learned anything, it's that your lowest point doesn't define you. What you do next. That's what tells the world who you are.